Hi, my name is Sandra Apperloo. I am the potter behind the Pottery Parade. So today I'm going to show you how to create a clay slab, how to roll it into a tube using this brush to make it into a weirdo butt vase. To do so, I use this silly paintbrush to create the shape that kind of is bigger at the bottom and thinner at the top, so that it gets a bit of a quirky shape. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roll the newspaper around the brush. I'm gonna leave it aside for a bit. I'm gonna start rolling the clay slab. To do this, you can use a regular rolling pin, you know, the ones that you use for cooking as well. I'm gonna start by making sure the clay is a little bit flatter. Then I'm gonna twist it and I start rolling it. We're done rolling. I'm going to draw out a template to roll my vase afterwards. I use this little pin to draw out the template. What I'm going to do now is remove the remaining bits of clay. I'm going to turn it like this. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to brush this little edge with a scraper and with a toothbrush. I take a toothbrush, dip it in a bit of water, and I just very briefly start stroking it. That's enough. Then I have this lovely scraping tool, which is one of my favorites for things like this. I dip it in a bit of water as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create little lines like this. I'm going to use a substance that's called clay slip. Clay slip basically is clay mixed with a lot of water, and it has a gluing function with ceramics. So I'm going to put a little bit here, and then after that we're going to roll the vase, and this part of the clay slab will be glued to this part so that we can create a nice round shape. What I'm going to do now is I take the paintbrush that I covered in a bit of newspaper. I'm going to put it down on the clay slab like this. I take the bottom part of the clay slab, the entire side, and I very slowly start bending it over the paintbrush like this. And that's enough for now. You can leave it like this, because what we're going to do first is we're going to create more little lines here, and again we're going to stroke it with a toothbrush so that we can make sure this side is going to stick to this side. And now we get to the tricky part. I'm going to roll the vase, and to do this I want to make sure that this part that I left with scratches is going to touch this part. Start to roll it slowly. Here we go. Gently press it. I start rolling it forward like this. Very gently. Then backward like this. One more time, because I see that this part's still a bit loose. So here we go. Gently and backward, and that's it. Now I pick it up like this. I put my hand under it. You don't want the edges to be entirely pressed to each other. This clay is still very wet, it's still super flexible, so we can remove all of this later. We're going to remove part of it now. To do that, I'm going to use this scraper like this, and I'm just gently stroking it like before, and then very slowly I start removing just a small part of the edge like this. I take this sponge, put it in a little bit of water, and then I start cleaning the surface. And that's it. So what I'm going to do now is remove the paintbrush. So you just kind of wiggle it around quite easily you should be able to remove the brush from the roll. I'm going to make sure that the top and the bottom are straight. I'm going to take the scraper again. I'm going to wet it just a little bit, and very slowly I'm gonna start cutting. So what I'm gonna do now is add a bottom to our vase shape. Usually when I do that, I leave it to dry just a little bit because it's a bit easier to work with when the clay is a bit stiffer. First, what I want to do is use a bit of clay slab again. So I'm just gonna fold this bit of clay like this. Take my rolling pin again. I'm going to take my clay tube and put it on the clay slab like this. Then I take my pinning tool and again I'm going to put it in some water. And now what I'm going to do is draw around the clay slab like this. It doesn't have to be precise yet. I'm going to remove the remaining bits of clay. And as you can see, the bottom is quite thick, which is nice because that's how I like it. I remove this for a second. Be careful because it may stick. And now we're going to do the same thing that we did to the clay slab. I'm going to use my toothbrush first to give it a bit of structure. Just like this, that's enough. I take my scraping tool. I take my tube. Going to do the same thing here. Now I take my clay slip again. I'm going to rub some of it on the tube. That's it. The bottom is now covered in clay slip. I put it up again and then slowly I'm going to place it on our clay slab. And for a minute there, you can put your head here just to make sure that you are covering all the parts of the slab. And then gently, I'm going to press it. So there you go. This is the basic shape of a weirdo butt vase. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to learn more about creating ceramics with personality, subscribe to Domestika to check out my online ceramics course.